So with the first one, because it's a new experience, your body's not. You're a little. You could be a little tense.
Yeah.
Could be a little bit constrictive, just because it's like, okay, wait, they're not used to having something there and water going up and the thing. Remember, it's simultaneous flow, so you're not getting all this. Oh, it's going in. She's going to get what's basically the way it works is you have your descending colon, your transverse colon, and your ascending colon. So it goes ascending, transverse, descending. So first she's going to clear out what's in your descending colon. It's not going to be like you have it all around. It's just going to be right there. It's going to loosen, it's going to release.
Okay.
Then there's going to be more space. You'll be able to do longer holds. Gets around the flexures, and it will get into your transverse colon. And then it's going to saturate and reconstitute what's there. And then that's going to leave. And then you'll do longer holds, because there'll be space. There'll be empty space. It goes all the way around the other flexure, and then you'll be able to get the ascending colon. And at the base of the ascending colon, you have the cecum. The cecum is your most recent meal that's made it as close as it can to the large intestine.
Okay.
And you have a cecum release that is, like, it feels warm. And it's fast and heavy and warm, because it's still kinetic, because it has liquid in it.
Yeah.
So the driest matter is going to be here, and the most water-containing matter is going to be here. And then you have that cecum release, and if you get the cecum release, you feel on top of the world.
Really?
It's amazing. I always tell people, like, eventually you're going to want to plan to have the most important thing you're going to do after your colonic. But the first couple of colonics, you don't want to do that, because it's a new experience. You might need to sit on the toilet afterward. There's things that may be happening. But eventually, when your body's used to it and you know how you're going to feel, if you get that cecum release, you want to go make that presentation. You want to, whatever, you want to go have that big workout. You want to go and ride the epic. You're ready to go. And if you're going to have chicken, have it with a salad. If you're going to have a piece of meat, have it with a salad. Don't do it as close to the colonic as possible, if you can avoid it. But have your green juice no matter what, once a day, twice a day if you can. And just be ready for what comes. Well, it's like everything in our culture. We're told to do the thing that's going to keep us out of our power. And the sun is pure power. And the sun has all this intelligence that wants to convey and conduct and suffuse us with. And they want to make sure that we cover ourselves up and stay out of it. Like, batten down the hatches, cover yourself and everything, cover your children. In fact, I think in Australia there's a law against letting your children play in the sun without those shirts on. And we know that Australia is pulling a lot of cards with this sort of police state, big brother stuff. So, we have to be attentive. It doesn't make you paranoid. It doesn't make you crazy. It doesn't make you a conspiracy theorist. It makes you awake, aware, and not going to be taken for a fool. Those who are taken for a fool call people who are paying attention conspiracy theorists. It's fine. It's just a matter of it's names, but those who are attentive will easily be able to recognize where there's this deception around the sun. First of all, the more toxic you are, the less you are able to tolerate the sun. So the combination of having a low capacity for being able to take in sunlight and combined with a message to stay out of the sun makes for a perfect union in somebody who's unconscious of how powerful the sun's energy is and how much we need it, unobstructed. Okay, so that's number one. Knowing that there is an agenda to keep us out of the sun, that it is not for the prevention of skin cancer, but is for the prevention of the universe communicating something that we will resonate with and respond to and will upgrade us. So that's also a pet peeve of mine when people say, well, oh, the sun is so great because, you get your vitamin D. I want to be like, vitamin D? Like, we're talking about the intelligence of the cosmos here, not vitamin D. Like, it's just vitamin D for dumb, maybe. I don't mean to be condescending and mean, but it's like, wakey people, this is not about vitamin D. And that's another way they keep us dumbed down. They say, oh, well, the sun will offer this little, like, what, nutrient? No. We're talking about something far vaster. We talk about true nourishment. We're talking about being suffused with the nourishment of intelligence. Intelligence informs our body. It rises the intelligence quotient in the body to not receive that is to be in a state of entropy and being dumbed down. So, so number one, you do want to have a relationship with the sun. You want to understand everything it's bringing you. It's the force of life, the source of life on this planet. It is pure solar energy. Soul is the center of the solar system. Everything works around it. So, and we have to recognize that our soul, our incorruptible material, our incorruptible substance that we're made of, that is soul. And our soul wants the soleil. In French, soul is soleil, sun is soleil. Soul in Espanol, I mean, and then we talk about, the sun in Christianity. There's no coincidence. There's not coincidence that we say the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, and the sun in the sky, and the soul is spelled, sun is spelled soul. Everything is in plain sight. We just have to be switched on. And when we say to turn on the lights, well, there's a big light out there, and the thing is also we have all these this myth around beauty and sun damage. My esthetician looks at my skin, and I have such an intimate relationship with the sun. Like the sun and I, we get it on every day. And she's like, how is this possible? Like, you're in the sun every day. You're not wearing SPF. I refuse any makeup, any skincare product, anything that has SPF. Typically I only use natural clean products anyway. But if anything, if there were something that had SPF in it, I deliberately would not get it if it had the SPF, because the chemical SPF, as opposed to a natural SPF, which can be found in all natural oils. Carrot oil, for example, has like a natural SPF of 15, as does coconut oil, raw, pure, organic coconut oil. So the natural tissue oils have, or natural plant oils that are great for the tissues, have a natural SPF in them. But regular SPF that you find in products, actually, anyone who's sensitive to it will taste it. It will taste it, because everything's permeable, so go on the skin, but you'll taste it in your mouth, and you'll taste the chemicals. It's awful. And so what happens is when you put these chemicals onto the body, the sun is going to mutate the skin, and there's that's in one way causing skin cancer. The other way people are experiencing skin cancer from the sun is because the sun is a huge magnet. It's pure alkalinity, so it's going to draw out the acidity in us. So what we're calling skin cancer caused by the sun is the cancer substance material, that the necrotic tissue, the necrotic cells, the abnormalities caused by acidity and pathogenic overload in the body being drawn to the surface. So you want to call that cancer caused by the sun, or you want to call that the cancer you created, that the sun in its desire to heal is trying to pull out of you. It's like, it's the awakening, but then there has to be the release. Don't blame the sun. This would have manifested as cancer whether the sun appeared to bring it to the surface or it remained causing cancer inside the body. It was already cancerous. The sun just brought it to the surface. It wasn't the sun's fault. But what is really cool is that the more cleansed your system becomes, the more you remove, the more rubbish you remove, the more of all this noxious stuff you remove, the more ease you'll feel in the sun. Now, we should always respect the heat of the sun. I'm not suggesting that we just go out and bake and expose ourselves unnecessarily, but there are healthy hours to be in the sun, and the more you deep tissue cleanse, the more those hours actually extend. So I will go out in the 2 o'clock in the afternoon sun, no problem. I'll put a straw hat on because I don't like the intensity of the sun on my face, and I will go and bask in the sun. I don't care what time it is. If the sun is out, I'm going to go. But until such a time as you're able to do that, go and enjoy the 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. sun in the summer, the sort of 4 to 5:30 p.m. sun in the summer. The hours can be longer in the winter, but and put a hat on, and definitely put oils on your skin, because otherwise it's very drying. So I just cover my skin in raw coconut oil or avocado oil, sesame oil. There's so many good oils. Any of the good tissue oils, the carrot oil I just spoke about, cucumber oil. Any of the essential oils can be added to it. That's fine. Those won't create any mutations. But and that will keep the skin nicely lubricated, so you absorb all the benefits of the sun without any kind of drying effect or anything. And then if you know how much time you can spend in the sun without getting burned, you go with that. I used to burn terribly. In fact, when I first came to South Africa, because the South African sun, as we know, is so strong. The California sun is strong. The Hawaiian sun is stronger. I grew up in California. I spent lots of holidays in Hawaii, fried like a lobster. I'm talking about being like 10 years old with frozen pineapples on top of me because I was so badly burned. And my body didn't know how to, it wasn't in agreement with the sun. I wasn't in copacetic in syncness with the sun. So I wasn't there yet. So my point is, even somebody with Russian, English, Irish skin who would normally burn under normal circumstances, meaning normal being culturally raised. So I used to burn, and I don't burn now. And I'm in the South African sun now. And I if there was such a thing as abusing the sun, I abuse it, But, and I don't recommend that those at home do that. But you gradually, as you cleanse, you gradually increase your exposure in a respectful way, respectful relationship with the sun. And then you kind of find that, you can throw a bit of caution to the wind. But don't do that if you're not ready to. But don't be so fooled to think that just because you have an inclination to burn now, that you're going to burn, 5 years into cleansing, 2 years into cleansing, 6 months into cleansing. It will shift. Because the more you embody the light, the more you are made of the same stuff that the sun is made of, the less it's there's a clash. The clash is the burn. I began serious deep tissue cleansing at about 21, 22. So 21, I came to South Africa. I burned very badly on my first trip out on the KwaZulu-Natal coast. A half an hour on a picnic on the beach, and I was fried. Half an hour is all it took in the South African sun, pre-cleansed. I was so embarrassed too, because I was about to meet my mother-in-law, and I thought she was just going to think, who is this foolish girl? She arrives here and she's already sunburnt. She's been here the 2 days. So I had a couple glasses of wine on the plane as well. Drunk and burned. Hello. I'm from Los Angeles. She already had all these preconceived notions about what I was going to be like. Don't worry, I pulled myself together. But put a little bit of makeup on and splashed some cool water on my face. So that's the story of the sun. So what we want to do is we want to cleanse, we want to have a new relationship with the sun, understand it differently, not be afraid of it, not believe the lies that we're told about it, respect it, put on a straw hat or a hat of some sort, just because the face doesn't need to take the brunt. But it's sort of in the terms that we're taught that the sun breaks things down, gives you skin cancer, makes you look old, I should really be a dried up old, raggedy old lady by now with all sorts of sunspots and crinkly skin and a mess, with a chest to match.
You see those on Clifton and
exactly, because you have people who are drinking, smoking, and eating starch, eating sugar, eating animal products, baking in the sun. That is the worst combination. They're going to look old before their time to the umpteenth. Yeah, they're just, it's a recipe for, because they're internally so dehydrated. And, it's awful. But that's not the only scenario. There's an alternative option. Be clean, connect to the sun, let the sun feed you. And what's also really interesting with that is that you will soak up the sun, and then the next day you'll be ready to soak it up again when you're clean celled. Whereas if you're, when you burn and you're overexposed to the sun, or you're exposed to the sun and you're not clean, you wind up really not wanting to be in the sun again for a while after you've had a day in the sun. So with my kids, school in the summertime, summer camps, all these things, first of all, I would always send them with their own clean sun protection product, which is so easy to get at the health food store. So a natural-based product they were sent with, but I never made a fuss of putting it all, on them and all over them. They just fared beautifully in the sun.
But they always ate well.
All three of the kids have always eaten cleanly. The two firstborn, who were born and raised in New York City, I speak for them because they've now, they're 16 and 18. I've seen the whole progression. And even though they don't eat that as cleanly now as I would like them to, in all of those years, up until maybe they were 11 and 13, they were under my domain. And they didn't even, I used to tell the teachers, just don't worry about the sunscreen, because everyone would say, pack sunscreen, make sure the hats are on, all this stuff. And I would just say, just let the kids do, they know what to do. Don't worry about them, they know what to do. So, I never had to fuss about, okay, got all this stuff on, and it was like, okay, here, it's in your bag. If you think you need it, use it. But for the most part, they never really needed much of it. And they would just get really brown. They would look like little Mexican kids. Well, it kind of depends on how much time they're going to be out there. If you know they're going to go on an outing, they're going to be in the sun all day, then maybe you put something on them. But if they're going to go out for an hour or half an hour, whatever it is, and they're going to play on the sand and whatever, for my kids in my situation, I didn't need to cover them up in a whole lot of stuff and put all that on. I think most kids, because of the lineage and because of maybe what they were taking in before, just the simple answer is use a natural-based product and use it until you need to use less of it. That's all. Yeah, it's really very easy. And know that the kids need to be out in the sun, and don't be so fearful of it. Put the minimal amount on. Make sure it's a natural-based product. Stop all these spray. Going to a public beach is a nightmare now because they've all got these aerosol cans out and they're spraying this stuff, and you wind up breathing it, and it's really irritating. They think they're just they're such good parents. Oh, come over here, shh. And the kids this is going to their lungs. It's going to their brain. It's going into obviously their cells. They're being conditioned to it and to believe in it too, because mom and dad are always out there to do what's best for me, and mom and dad are trying to, but they just don't know any better. And then the popular products, people just don't often think enough. I say that lovingly, but they don't examine. And was it Socrates who said that the unexamined life is not worth living? Well, the unexamined action should not be done. It's more than not worth doing. It should not be done until it is examined and deemed to be correct. It's it's powerful, it's hot, you can get burned, you can get fatigued if you overly exercise in the sun. So, but also there's different kinds of sun. There's in the sense that if you're in a city and there's not a lot of oxygen and you want to go for a run in the sun and you're going to get really depleted. It's going to be an anti-energetic experience. You might have an active run, but you're going to be really depleted. Whereas if you're in a highly oxygenated rainforest and it's a sunny day, you can swing from the trees and run around and do whatever, and you're going to feel energized. So it's a lot of the experience in the sun has to do with the air quality and the oxygen content, the concentration of oxygen. If a girl has her cell phone in her pockets or whatever, she's irradiating her ovaries. So, that's kind of major.
Yeah.
Boys are doing the same to their testicles, but they can, for example, a young man who knows he wants to have children could take a year or two to cleanse and have fresh sperm.
Yeah.
But the girl's not going to get fresh eggs.
Yeah.
It's serious. It's pretty much generation game over, because this sterility that's occurring, and it shouldn't be overridden. When nature sends us a signal that we're not viable to host life, that's something that we should not be trying to override, and that's what everyone's trying to override. So sterility is on the increase, lack of virility is on the increase, and it's all coming back. And the irony is that we live in a culture that over-sexualizes everything, tries to make sex be the selling point for everything.
Yeah.
And the irony is that people are so toxic, they don't even smell good anymore. their sexual organs aren't working properly anymore, and the very thing that's meant to be incentivizing people to buy all this stuff we don't need that makes us sick is making us sterile and basically causing or going to result in our extinction. And our posture and everything that has to do with the device. All of it. The opposable thumb that came along with the last evolution. That's why it's going to be the driving factor for our disintegration. Well, in so many ways, just getting your confidence back gives you a huge amount of mojo.
Yeah.
So when you even just lose some weight and start to feel better, and you're on the right track and you're not being buried alive by life, you start to think, okay, wait, I can do this now. So you get a bit of confidence, get a bit of mojo, your inspiration comes back, your creativity flows, and life starts to open and work. And then you have men who were emasculated by the world they were living in, and they become conscious, and they do things that play into that unity consciousness, into that higher level of consciousness that come up and out of the mosh pit, and it's not just about the kind of mojo virility of being able to land the chicks and feel like you got your swag on, but it's about something so much bigger, which is like, wow, I have my divine masculinity back on track. I can be a real man. I don't need to be this version of a man that society tells me to be that actually is emasculated, that doesn't have any real power, that isn't prepared to be a sovereign, that can't even keep his stuff together, much less a family, and keep his woman interested. And the beauty of that is that when a man's in his true strength, his divine power, his functional masculinity, as opposed to the dysfunctional masculinity, which is what this dysfunctional patriarchy that's been running our world, just lording over us, he's going to be attractive to a woman who's in her divine femininity, because she's going to identify those qualities. She's not going to be looking for the things that the dysfunctional feminine is looking for. She's not going to be looking for the external evidence of security, dysfunctional lower chakra stuff that is usually connected with a man who's not ultimately going to be able to love her and satisfy the true, authentic needs she has, but will only sort of respond to the things that she's looking for that are bells and whistles and external gratifications and things that'll make her look good in society and make her keep up with the Joneses beautifully, and they'll do all that stuff, really codependency. But so when you have the divine feminine qualities and the divine masculine qualities, and they identify each other, they identify each other, then you have the opportunity for real bonding, not bondage, which is what most codependency is, but bonding. The forces, the frequencies, they sync up. They like each other. They are synergistic, and those kinds of bonds they don't break the way bondage bonds break, and there's so many biblical passages that talk about and Shakespeare said it best. Love is not love that alters when it alteration finds, nor bends with the mover to remove. No, it is an ever-fixed mark that looks upon storm tempest and is not shaken. It is the star to every wandering bark whose, I can't remember it all, although it is, love is not time's fool, no rosy lips and cheeks do, it's not like all these things will change, but love bears it out even till the end of time, or even till the end of doom. So, and then I think it's in Ephesians where it says, what love is and what love isn't. It's not boastful. It's not unkind. It's not, love is patient. Love is, and when you hear these things and you're in cultural conditioning and cultural consciousness, you're like, well, that just sounds like niceties. It doesn't have any real depth. It doesn't have any excitement. But actually, that kind of bonding has huge excitement, because it's the force field. It's like, whoo, it's got the the verve, the nerve and the verve, and the life force, the virility. It has something that's, it's like the difference between having a little string that's connecting and bonding you, and having, thick living rope, like almost like when Jack the Beanstalk climbs that rope, that kind of stuff. Like Jack climbs the stalk. It's like made of, it's braided together. It's not tangled, it's braided, and it's not lightweight, it's robust. And then that is the fabric of families. But the stuff that we build families on, is so breakable and weak. And I think there's also a reason for that. I think that the factions that fashion what we do and how we do things are deliberately wanting to keep us in codependency and having weak relationship, weak bonds.
Yeah.
I passed chemistry, but I wouldn't say I was a superstar by a long shot. But there's different ways that molecules, atoms bond together, the covalent bonds, and so these are weak bonds that are being created, very weak bonds, and it's funny because we talk about love and chemistry. There's that great line in Guys and Dolls when Nathan Detroit, the hot shot, says, "You want to know how a real man, what a real man thinks about the big heartthrob or the big thinking about love?" And she's like, "Yeah, fine, tell me." He's like, "Well, mine's going to come from chemistry." And she goes, "Chemistry?" He's like, "Yeah, chemistry." And it is the bonds, because chemistry, it's like we think about chemistry in terms of attraction.
Yeah.
So, and there's the pheromones, and the pheromones are the essence. You could even say the essence of the person. It could be also that personal stamp that's part of our essential integrity. And so when we take in each other's pheromones, there's a certain amount of chemistry to that. But then there's a deeper chemistry, which is the bond that forms, which also goes back to the male-female polarity, which also, if we take this back to our original conversation about transgender, the more gender is neutralized, nullified, and messed with, the more of our innate power is being decreased and reduced. So there's something so significant in the organic sexuality and the organic bonding of ideally the divine masculine with divine feminine that has been broken down so significantly that we don't even really have, most people don't even have access to it. They need to rebuild that. That's something so sacred and so much at the core of how everything is supposed to work, and yet it's the thing that's been almost targeted to be desecrated. And at the same time, we know that that's been desecrated, and there's this anti-energetic force trying to feed off of it and benefit from our energy. Well, I mean, is it not coincidence that the two have been sort of orchestrated together for a really quick, really effective, full throttle demasculation and defeminization and sort of a disempowerment of everything that the male-female bond can build, the bond between themselves, each other, the power that of the life force that create offspring, the offspring that then creates the families built on this that would create communities that would be so strong. Imagine all these families with this kind of true bonding that is unshakable by external circumstances and things, and communities built on that, and nations built on that.
Kids.
And you become competitive with those around you as opposed to integrated with them. Keeping up with the Joneses concept. It basically becomes like, well, in my own little space here, I'm so competent. Look what I can create. Oh, I can create that too. Don't think you're the only one that can.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think this is interesting too. It's amazing. I never thought about that. Yeah, and in competing with them, we're wasting our energy on the wrong things. We get caught up in this sense of ego. We have to preen, we have to look on the outside like we have it all together. And so we then neglect the inner being, and neglect building that. Community is so important. We are, saying no man is an island. We are meant to be in unity, inclusivity. It's all. We are one network. So yeah, so true. And that's what medicine does too. Medicine breaks everything down into diseases and compartments. You've got your specialist, so you break it down. So it's everything is compartmentalized. Our lives are compartmentalized. Our symptoms are compartmentalized. Our education is compartmentalized. If you think about it, our education everything should be integrated. We should be history, writing, math, art. It should all be one. It shouldn't be, because it is one. Well, it's just really sad because the very poor people can't afford. First of all, because of the way their days are and their work goes, they become sitting ducks to be sold cheap food, cheap snacks. They get very addicted because their lives are otherwise, they're not getting, their satisfaction level is so low that they're sitting ducks for addiction to starches, sugars, sodas, this cheap stuff, and they wind up with, symptoms all day long. A lot of bowel issues. I know firsthand because I've spoken to them. A lot of arthritis, headaches, a lot of back pain because the men all wind up with these bellies, and that's creating sciatica and sore back problems that just wind up, messing with their discs and everything, and then they're incapacitated. They're on their backs, but then they can't get the option is surgery because they don't have access to healers who can help, positively manipulate them, like through acupuncture, chiropractics, or physios, and then the surgical option is too expensive. It's awful. And then I see these little kids just being given these Simpa chips all day long, Simpa chips and Fanta, and their parents aren't educated remotely. They just do what their parents did, and the food has become even cheaper now. It's been dumbed down even more. It's been produced more cheaply, I should say, even though it probably costs more to purchase. And it's awful. It's heartbreaking. And meanwhile, if they didn't go out and work for the man, as it were, they could be tending their own gardens and urban gardens where needed, and live simply and be happy and have clean systems. And what's worse is that 300 years ago, they were living indigenously. They were, you look at the Bushmen and how happy and connected they were, and
in the sun as well.
Yes, in the sun, and with such a huge variety of indigenous plant species, the microbiological diversity. This is, especially in this part of the world, it's probably more concentrated here than anywhere else in the world, or certainly as much as anywhere else in the world. As much as the most microbially diverse places in the world, I should say, and they were living without toil, and in Scripture it says, look at the lilies of the field. Forget about you. You guys worry so much about what you're going to put on and what's going to happen to you tomorrow. Look at the lilies of the field. They don't toil, nor do they spin. And look at Solomon in all his glory. Was never, dressed up like one of these. And it's true. So just being connected with the land, knowing where to go for shelter, having an abundance in front of you of this business of having to work so hard for food is a lie. It's one of the biggest lies we've been sold in our education. There is so much, and it's the earth is so fertile, and it's brimming when it's not being covered over in concrete and covered in pollution and suffocated and all this stuff that we do in the modern world. And which, by the way, the statistic is that 200 species of life are eviscerated every day by the way we live in the modern world. That's plants, microbes, insects, animals, finished. So 100 years ago, 200 years ago, this microbial diversity and the insect life and everything was brimming.
And expanding.
Yes, exactly, because it was in a syntropic state. It's in a vortex of a centripetal universe, a centripetal planet. centripetal meaning life, conservation of energy, always building, always increasing. So all you did was grab a little over here if you wanted something. I mean, it was not that difficult. And this idea, this is also why it makes you question, like, well, if we had this idea that they were toiling and they were spending their whole, it was so hard to have food and shelter, well, what other rubbish have we bought into? It's all rubbish. It's all rubbish. This caveman concept. I mean, I keep on having to challenge my kids on that. It's like, it wasn't like that, you know. They wanted to make it look like we're so much more advanced now, when we're killing ourselves now in half the time, you know. If you believe the biblical records of how long men used to live, you wouldn't think that our life expectancy is so much greater now. But if you look at the Middle Ages, when people were consuming things they shouldn't have been consuming, meats, for example, and all this, you know, they weren't. So if you were if you were an indigenous person, and you were going to say kill an elk or a buffalo or something, first of all, you did it in a way that respected the animal. You were conscious of it. You didn't want to take the life. You sent the spirit to a higher place, and you said a prayer for it to come back as a higher being, and you totally appreciated it. Then you used every cell on its body to cover yourself, for your shelter, for your swords, for your tools, for your food, everything. Nothing was wasted. And it was the way it was killed, and the blood was drained, and everything was done. It was and the rapidity with which it was consumed ensured that there would be no decay. So everyone was fed. Everyone got clean meat, as it were, a living meat. So they would use everything. They would respect the animal, and it would be consumed so that nobody could get sick. Flash forward, meaning that it would quickly, and it wouldn't be sick. But then you have like these Middle Ages times, for example, where like there was complete disregard for sanitation, and the meats were hanging in and things were sitting, and so there's no refrigeration, and people were doing everything the wrong way, and so there's all this sickness, Black Plague, bubonic plague, dying of consumption, like whatever, the smallpox.
And more control of the land as well, so stuff happening.
Yeah, that too, yeah. And then people living in cities, so they were all infecting each other, and everything was so unclean. So you had this drastic reduction in life expectancy in those years, because everyone was, dying of bacteria. That's what they were dying of. Name it a dozen different things, it's all dying of bacteria. Infestation of bacteria. So then you have refrigeration and antibiotics, and suddenly everyone's living longer. So if we're going to compare our life expectancy now to the life expectancy in Shakespearean days, we're buying into a lie, because they were truncating their lives. They were cutting their lives short. We can't compare life expectancy. We can't get a sense of what the true human life expectancy is by looking at what we have now compared to what was 500 years ago. Yeah. Or even 300 years ago, 100 years ago. Before we're 150 years since we've had penicillin. We need to consider what our lives would be like, and if we came in with clean lineage, and so we came with full functionality of our organs and tons of life force, lived in a way that was interconnected with life, and it was not in opposition to life, and we also had refrigeration, and when needed, an antibiotic in an emergency. And then it's like, well, then we're accessing the best of everything. Let's get ourselves there. Why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we create those conditions? Seems so obvious. Well, the true legacy, the true inheritance that you're leaving your children isn't going to come from money. And also, the kids who wind up inheriting a lot of money wind up doing very little to build themselves up and keep themselves in a syntropic state. They wind up becoming lazy usually, and having narcissistic, egotistical inclinations, being wasteful, feeling entitled. Very, very rare that you have somebody who just knows they're going to inherit a lot, or is overly indulged as a child, who tends to strive. Those two don't usually go in hand in hand. So I would say to anyone who's working their tail off to leave something material of substance behind, for their children at the expense of spending time with their children and taking care of their own DNA and helping their kids take care of their DNA for their grandchildren and progeny, that is highly misguided. That's actually going to leave them a legacy of weakness. Their actual intrinsic wealth is going to be very low. They're going to be more inclined to need a lot of therapy and possibly wind up, if they don't have those kinds of bonds, if we don't have the kinds of strong bonds in our relationships, we will feel so lonely and more inclined towards suicide. So the more disconnected we are, the more we're left to fend for ourselves emotionally, the more likely we are to not have faith in our ability to find happiness in ourselves, reach for things externally, and continuously find dissatisfaction. It will basically leave your children far more deficient, more in more ultimately in more economical distress. If we're talking about an economy of life force, an economy of wellness, an economy of happiness. Because if money is not going to be there to provide a sense of positive security, not just comfort, but functional security that keeps us. Functional security I would define as a kind of foundation that enables you to express yourself fully, not have the concerns of shelter and immediate needs to be safe, so that you can be more expressive, reach out more. It's kind of like, when you say to someone, I got to grab that thing over there, down there. Can you just hold my arm? Can you hold my leg? Because I got to grab that. That's functional security, because you can then reach for something and somebody's got you. But we need to be able to expand, to reach. So if you're going to provide something for your children, you want to provide them with a foundation that enables them to express more fully, to reach more fully, to do that which will restore the network of life more effectively, which means you're probably going to have to reevaluate the kind of wealth and security you're intending to create for them, because you might even intend to create it, and then the market crashes, and then what do they have? What does anybody have? Because things are looking like, it looks like our whole a concept of everything that we hold to be true now, where education's going to go, where the financial system's going to go, health, medical, all of these categories, they're seeing their end days, their end times. Everything's going to be different in the future. So, what are the things that are never going to change? Our intrinsic sense of self, our our essential integrity, our relationships, the way we interface with the world, our behavior. These are things that we can build that will not be influenced by external circumstances. Well, no. I mean, the way I see it is that the essential integrity will expand. So our insides, so our way of being and feeling, will be so much more dynamic. Because if we have, say, and the way I'm like, I keep on going here because this is like the core of the essential and our essential integrity. But if we feel it here and we get that vibration here, and then it starts to move through us and expand throughout us, the concentration of it, it's like going to be more concentrated and more diffused throughout us. So more expansive and more of it is going to mean that our internal feeling is going to be totally different. It's going to be, instead of feeling a little bit of that vibration and mostly kind of whatever we're used to, we're going to feel mostly that vibration and very little of what we felt before. So we'll be totally transformed.